Good morning and welcome to your daily game face. I am Dr. Kim Lannon here with you the week before Thanksgiving with very happy back spasmy Lou. And he's having a rough morning and I was having a rough morning. So we'll start off the show right out of the gate talking about how to rally when you feel like crap.
Worst back spasms ever.
And I'm still fighting this cold, non-cold thing that that's my word for it. It's not
test, right?
cold. What?
It's not COVID, right? You said?
No.
Okay.
No. I have been the fortunate one. I still haven't gotten COVID. Not that I wanted, but I actually have this as a claim to fame now that I think
You
I've
have
tested.
never gotten COVID?
I have never gotten COVID.
Oh my God.
Did I know of? And I've tested many times. Even when I was like, "Ooh, I must have COVID," I would stick something up my nose and test, and still nothing.
Did you vaccine?
I have not vaccinated in a while because
You haven't got in a while, yeah.
I had 5 of them, and I'm
Oh,
done.
did you?
I think 5 is my limit. How's that?
I was forced to attend my son's college graduation to take the vaccine, but that was the last time I did it.
Well, I had to. I digress, but we'll go back to the topic. But I was flying during the pandemic. Now that the pandemic's over, I can admit that I was flying a lot, and I was happily the only person on the plane many times, especially the first year. And it was super cheap, like $30 round trip on JetBlue. And I was flying like monthly to Florida and to Utah and Texas and California. And I still didn't get COVID.
Making
I had
lemonade out of lemons, right?
had a luxury liner airplane flying me, pretty much me alone on these planes. It was lovely.
Wow. Making lemonade out of lemons.
Exactly. But I was required to have the shots for that. And I was also required to have the shots for where I work at the colleges.
Oh, I would imagine, yeah.
I was not allowed to be on campus without proof of purchase. So I am COVID shotted out.
All right.
So I am,
cool.
But this is just a cold that my niece gave me, and it's her fault. And she breathed on me, and I told her not to breathe on me because she works with little kids, and
Oh God, yeah.
And they're disease breeders at 2 and 3 and 4 years old, and she's sick constantly, and she breathed on me, and I tried really hard not to get it, but now it's just lingering. So anyway, I almost didn't make this show this morning because I couldn't talk yesterday because the sore throat keeps cycling back around. But I'm taking antibiotics.
And I almost didn't make the show because I couldn't make it up the stairs.
So this is the topic, but wasn't the topic. But the start of the topic is because we're coming to Thanksgiving. So it's about being grateful. And I'm going to be very wickedified and say we have to be gratitudinous and obsessified with being gratitudinous during the season. I saw Wicked on Monday.
Oh, did you? Yeah.
I did. It doesn't open till Friday, but I got to see it on Monday. And
was there a lot of singing?
Well, it's Wicked.
I know.
So yes, and it was spectacular. It was obsessifying.
Obsessifying, okay.
Yes, well, these are the words that Glinda uses.
I know.
I'm just saying. So, but I did get to see it and it was wonderful. So, back to the topic though, that we have gratitude and we are gratitudinous at this time of year, or we're supposed to be, but we're supposed to be all year round. And so in the year of you and the year of me, I'm getting ready to go into the next phase of 2026, talking about what the new topic is. And that's going to be exciting because I have come up with a whopper of a topic for the next year to add on to being your best self and the year of you and the year of me. And I'm not going to disclose that yet, but we will start off by talking about the gratitude and the attitude of gratitude and how the benefit is psychologically for people. And so I'm going to get a little technical today. And then I'm going to talk a little bit about, how to manage the holidays. But we'll see where we get with it. But I did want to talk about gratitude because people, again, it's one of those words that gets colloquially thrown around and people just be like, oh, be grateful and write 5 grateful things and right. But I wanted to really break it down and talk about And forgive me for my voice and whatever is going to happen during this, because who knows.
Well, would you say, my thought is that gratitude is, and everybody rolls their eyes, it's the single most important mental concept you can have, I think.
Well,
Just
well,
changing
when
your
you say it's the
mindset
single
and
most,
living.
I'd have to think about whether it's the single most, but it's definitely up in the top 3, I would say.
Yeah.
I don't know what the other 2 are off the top of my head, but I would, before I answer that as it's the top, I would say, it's definitely up there for sure, because it has such a
Managing your mindset with gratitude is vitally important.
yes. And so, okay, so to this point, right? So we'll stay with the fact that, let's say that it is the number one psychological factor, right? Okay. So gratitude is more than just a positive feeling, right? And people think of it as a feeling, but it's a complex, like mental, cognitive, and emotional phenomenon together that involves how we contribute to our own well-being and enhancing our appreciation for positive outcomes in life. So there's a big package to unwrap, right? So it's a very complex entity. And so from a neuroscience perspective, which I love neuroscience and
Mhm.
love teaching it. Gratitude, so like you just said about like the word, and it kind of gets fluffed up and whatever, fluffed and buffed, right?
Yep.
But from that neuroscience perspective, I'm going to use some big terms here in a second. Gratitude activates very specific regions of the brain that make us function differently and in a better way. So if we're looking to have our best selves and our best day and our best moment and live in intention and all the things we've been talking about, and I've been saying all year about how to live your best life and do the year of you, it there's key regions of the brain. So the prefrontal cortex, all right, the anterior cingulate cortex, right, anterior, the ventral striatum, and that's the key brain region involved in processing rewards. Like dopamine comes from there and all the reward centers, right? And then the insula, and that's the region of the brain involved in emotional awareness. Those all are activated when we have gratitude, or when we're expressing gratitude, or we feel grateful, or we have the complexity of all of them together. So when we understand how these areas of the brain work and regulate emotion, decision making, and reward processing, it's an ongoing looping process. And usually when I'm talking about looping, I'm talking about in a negative way. So if you listen to my last 5 shows, we're talking
Yep.
about being in a terrible loop. This is in a loop that is a reward processor that is that's ongoing. And so what science has showed is that it impacts our own relationship to self. It impacts relationships outside of us, between others and ourselves. It builds resiliency in our mind and our bodies, including our immune system. And so the mental and physical health benefits are so good, and people don't realize, because, like you said, the eye roll about, oh, be grateful, have attitude of
Yep.
gratitude, right? But it really actually is an impressively significant part of how we end up being in the world on a daily. So essentially, when we do experience gratitude, it changes our physiological aspects of the brain. And what it does is those areas of the brain I just talked about, it goes to the neurotransmitters. Those are the chemicals that make us feel good or bad, like serotonin, it's a mood regulator. GABA, it's our anxiety moderator. Dopamine, it's our feel good pleasure center, right? Acetylcholine, it's our movement and our memory neurotransmitter. So it resides when we have gratitude and we feel full of something, like appreciated, or we appreciate something, or we're giving to something. And this is why community work and philanthropy and giving back is so important, because that's part of gratitude, because it's showing how much you're caring about something. And then the neurotransmitters that are all involved in those regions of the brain I just talked about create feelings of happiness and contentment that give you a sense of worth, and it gives you a sense of purpose. Um, and and that just in the world makes you have a better day-to-day life, right? And so when it changes those physiological aspects, uh, what a great benefit, right? But people don't pay enough attention to that. And that's why I like to highlight these things that people don't pay enough attention to, because they roll their eyes and think, oh, it's no big deal. But the research also has hypothesized that gratitude is correlated with brain activity associated with moral cognition. And when people are grateful or show gratitude or do things that are going to generate gratitude, it activates the reward center in the circuits of the brain that have social interaction and cognitive processes, which then lead to good moral compassing. And so what an amazing entity of things that all work together. So there's a whole beginning intro of literally 5 minutes I just talked for about just the neuro background. And I could say more, but that's a pretty big part of just the benefit biologically, physiologically, and emotionally of how gratitude is important in your life without even talking about gratitude itself yet. And now my cat's going to be gratitude in this now in the background screaming.
I think it's funny how people buy into to use the term you use, negative loops and negative thought processes, and what the problems are with that, but they don't understand the power of the positive side of it. So they don't invoke the positive side of it, because again, they do an eye roll. It's like, no, that doesn't really work. Of course, it works. It works just as well as a negative mindset.
Right. Well, and
The positive mindset helps you to the same extent.
exactly. And so to that point, there are we tend to be, in old school psychology, we call it depressogenic. We tend to have this depressogenic ideation, which means that we tend to have an idea in our head all the time of learned helplessness. We tend to feel like we can't get ahead, things are against us, the world is a bad place, or things aren't going to go our way. Like, so to rally an idea of gratitude is so foreign to so many people because that's learned optimism. And because our society is so helpless in so many ways, it doesn't go towards that. But there's an enormous amount of research, and social psychologists like Albert Bandura and other psychologists have talked really in depth about we can have learned optimism. I'm going to have one pause for a second because I hear somebody killing one of my other cats. Give me 1 second. Think about learned helplessness. I just have to make sure no one's dying in my house. Okay. Hey, I'm doing like a tap dance. Here we go. Hey, Ash, my little child is bugging my 21-year-old from going down the stairs. Sorry about that. This is what happens when I do things from home. It's like
I
having
think
children.
what you just addressed to me is, I think society in general has a victim mentality right now, because what a victim mentality allows you to do is not take responsibility for your outcomes,
Well,
because
yeah.
they're happening to you. Everything is external. You can't control anything. So if you try to tell people you can control, they have to take responsibility for their outcomes, and nobody wants to do that. Very few.
And I hear at least, say out of 70 people a week, I hear at least half on a weekly tell me about how they don't have control, or they can't do something because they don't feel that they have control over something, or that if they implemented the thought that they could they could learn optimism. Because I always say, if you can learn helplessness, which is what you've learned, you've been trained how to treat yourself, right? You've
Yep.
trained yourself how to feel helpless and have what you just said. You can flip that around and you can learn optimism. You can learn positive psychology. And that doesn't mean that stereotypical, like, slogan of just do it like Nike would say, and not Nike, but it's not about that. It's about really embracing the fact that your brain responds to these messages, and you have trained your brain tracks, the ones that I just mentioned neuroscientifically, and neuropsychologically. You've trained those brain tracks over your lifetime to go down patterns that are negative in general.
Yep.
And so you are going to default over and over and over to those train tracks as a general rule, even without realizing it, even without thinking about it. It just comes naturally as a default.
And by the
So
way, you were probably raised that way, right?
the likelihood is you were raised that way, or you're exposed in some type of environment. Because I know some people that have families that didn't raise their children in such a manner, but their schooling did, or their exposure to a couple other externals did. So it's not always the family. Predominantly, it usually is, but there are other areas that impact children, especially when kids go early to, they go to daycares at 1 and 2 and 3, and they spend 8 to 10 hours with, for lack of a better term, like daycare providers, nannies, whatever. They're getting exposed to whatever those people are giving them.
Yeah.
So, it's a variety of externals. Um, and when you group a group of people together, little kids, and you try to train them all to be moralistic, wonderful, grateful sharers and all the things that happen when they're little, it doesn't always come out that way. So, and if they're the primary people that are influencing those kids, the family may be counteracting it with like positive regard and unconditional love and all those things, but there could be something else going on. So this is one place where I would say that a lot of external interaction for kids that are exposed early to other social situations that are not necessarily parental or primary caregiving are influential. So to that point, right?
Yeah.
So really quickly, I was going to not talk about it, but I was going to add into that piece about the moral compass, because we were talking about little kids, that change in the uh, the posteromedial area and the insular cortex, right? That spot that I talked about for the emotional functioning, and that prefrontal cortex, that central reward system has direct impact if you have been shown gratitude, or if you're giving something with gratitude, or you're grateful for something, or you feel appreciated and you feel purposeful. That, if you could look at an MRI or a functional MRI and fMRI, you could see the brain spots that I'm talking about light up. And I wish so many people could see those things to show them, instead of me just telling them, because it's hard to believe if you don't see sometimes the visuals of, look at when you have a feeling of exposure to something grateful, or that you have appreciation, or that you feel appreciated. If you've been appreciated recently, which I don't know if you have, Lou, but on occasion, it's rare. It's rarer in my field to get appreciated, right? People don't do that, but on occasion, right? And I've had a little influx. I don't know if it's the season. I don't know what it is. I've had a rare influx of a few people reaching out and sending me these messages, or sending me little things or packages, or things that have been like, oh, I wanted to let you know something, and then like showing gratitude.
Nice.
It changes my thank you. I wasn't looking for more gratitude. But for a personal experience, speaking to this whole neurological thing, is the change that it makes in my day that motivates me to go, oh my gosh, I am making an impact. There are people who have valued this. It's not just in the moment. It's people that 10 years, 2 years, 15 years ago, like, that are either still with me or have come back and, and saying like something, or just out of the blue randomly writing me something about how, I have a client that had a son. He's graduating college early. When he came to me when he was very young, he was not doing well. We'll just put it that way. The fact that he's top of his game and like doing famous things legitimately right now. And the mom reached out and was like, you would have no idea. And thank you so much. And just that alone, it's like, I didn't set out to do that trajectory. I just set out for him to have his best life that he could by getting him on his right track. And they followed along. And that's just that sentiment, getting that from someone is like, I'm so grateful that they're so grateful. We could have a grateful fest. It's like people who write thank you notes, which is going to be a technique I'm going to talk about, I call it the lost art of thank yous, right? People, text thank yous. No, but we'll talk about that. But I think that it's so important to note in your head, going back to awareness is always key. Note in your head when things are regulating you in the day. Like if somebody says something nice, or somebody says something, or you say something nice and people appreciate it. I always flip back to that time. This is that time of year where, you go through the toll booth, or you go through Dunkin' Donuts drive-through and someone pays for your, that's an act of gratitude. Like
Yeah.
somebody's showing a good thing. And what happens is that emotional center of our brain that is responsible for all the emotional, reactions and all those things, basically sparks like a light of happiness and reward and motivates us and creates all the good feeling, chemicals that make us produce a better mood. And I cannot emphasize enough how we want to um, spend this last, I mean, we should spend all the time in this, but really in the year of you, really spending time doing things that would make other people grateful for the benefit of it in an altruistic way, but also being grateful for your own things on a daily.
It's funny how this is a cascading storm, and when you're managing people, sometimes just showing them a little bit of gratitude, and it changes the whole tone of all the conversations, and the interaction just lifts everything. It doesn't
Mhm.
take much to do. You don't have to throw someone a dinner to show appreciation. It
No.
just even the small things, and again, it just lights up the relationship and just makes everything so positive.
Well, and and that's why it has such a social importance impact to people, because it lights up all those regions of the brain that you're just talking about that make that happen. And I think to the point too is gratitude has long been associated and correlated, not just, loosely, but actually correlated and with causation, um, to resiliency and feelings of being resilient in the world. That if you're shown gratitude, or that you have reciprocating gratitude between your social relationships, that people will feel more grateful and will practice more gratitude when they feel emotionally stronger, because it's a good loop. It's a positive feedback loop. And so when it boosts your emotional resiliency by focusing on, I call it productive things, not positive, because even though it's within the realm of positive psychology, it's about being productive. It's about, instead of focusing on like toxic emotions, like we talked about with all like the gaslighters and the narcissists and the
Yeah.
trauma bonding and all that, it's about your emotional resiliency is boosted when you're focusing on the positive, productive things, and you're not focused on things like jealousy, resentments, anxiety, the neural things that kind of shut us down and make us really paralyzed. Because those things that I just mentioned, when we analyze them, we paralyze ourselves, and then we don't have space to get rid of stress. And when we commit to a daily practice of intention, and maybe your intention can be gratitude for the remainder of the year, and that can become part of your practice of how to have your best you, right? Committing to a daily practice of gratitude is more than likely to reduce negative emotions. It's more than likely to provide a natural stress detox for your mind and body, because if you can distract yourself and push yourself back from a negative thought or a toxic moment, um, you're going to have that elevated lift in your whole resiliency and just being in the world. And then you'll have a reduction in your cortisol levels. And your cortisol levels, when they're dumping from your pancreas and your nether regions of your stress hormones, right? The stress hormone, when it lowers from having the gratitude pattern and then that commitment to the practice to reduce the negative pattern, the cortisol drops, and you actually have better cardiac functioning. There's been a whole bunch of really good studies out there from back in the early 2000s all the way up to now about the correlation and or causation of the two together. So people who practice the gratitudinous
Yep.
lifestyle um, are more resilient to emotional setbacks. They're more resilient to negative experiences. They're more, I call it putting the peace bubble around you. Put the peace bubble around you, fill it with fill it with the color of light you'd want in it. So look, people pick white light, people pick purple light, people pick blue light, the light that feels light, literally light. And imagining yourself enveloped in that so that you can walk around practicing like how to handle your own stress and rewire your brain to cope with difficult circumstances. And you're doing it with more awareness and broader perception of the fact that, hey, I'm grateful for today. I'm grateful that, like, for instance, I woke up this morning and I thought, oh, this is going to be a bad
Yeah.
morning. And in my head, I had to do a gratitude practice of, okay. And I listed like 3 or 4 things in my head. And then it just like changed. And I could tell you how it happened because of the things I said, but I'm not going to go through my things. But
Mhm.
it was because of these 3 things that I was in my head doing very quickly of, oh, my perception shifted really quickly. Even though I felt like shit, my throat felt like shit,
Yeah.
and I thought I was gonna die.
But just that thought of waking up and saying, "Oh, this is gonna be bad," right?
Right,
It just sets
right.
the whole tone for the day, and again, we understand the power of that and how it works. If you walk into a job interview, "I'm gonna blow this job interview," you usually do, right?
Yep, yep. Well, because you're setting yourself up
Right,
for negative in, negative out,
right. Thoughts
right?
become things. I know
Right.
everyone laughs, at the secret, but thoughts become things. It's a very basic principle. So when you say this is gonna be a bad day, you generally manifest a bad day.
Well, and that's the thing, and I teach my clients a lot of the time that your thought does not have to become your whole day.
Right.
Your thought can take up that moment so many times. And I use the example of, I had a client many years ago who their greatest anxiety of the day is they had a $50,000 rug, right? And I'm
Okay.
not kidding. It was a $50,000 rug. And some red wine and some coffee had been spilled on it over a weekend party or something. I can't remember all the details, but essentially. And the amount of negativity and upset neurotransmission that was going on around this, because the perspective was not in perspective, right?
Right.
So my words and the way I practice is often very blunt and very, shifting into perspective of, well, you can look at it that way, or you could say, wow, I have a $50,000 rug that came from my person in my life that was incredibly wealthy and also gave me a lot of other things. And I'm so lucky to have that. And all I have to do is clean it.
Yeah.
And the end of the world isn't coming because it's a first world problem. Although it's giving you anxiety and that's valid and it bothers you, there's a deeper issue here than just wine and coffee on the rug. And once I said that, it was amazing. The person I remember her shifting her perspective in that moment, but then being able to do it subsequent to that and other things that came up because it was such an extreme thing anyway. But
Yeah.
when I just said, you've lost perspective on this, like, you have a $50,000 rug, and granted, it was gifted to you from a very famous relative and other things. It was about the emotional sentimentality of it, and we had to really get to that part of it because it was rocking that part of the brain that I just spent the past 25 minutes talking about. And instead of it being like ruminating and saying, how does that make you feel? Obviously, we know how it made her feel, but it was like, but it can be taken care of, and we don't have to have anxiety over it, because without the gratitude for what we have and what we can do about it, because there are behavioral changes, we clean the rug, right? As basic as it is, we just have the ability to lower our anxiety by thoughts don't have to equal something else. The thought can just stop at that thought, and it doesn't have to go into this narrative that takes us down a rat hole and ruins our day, our month, our week, our year, whatever, because something can be remedied about it. And it's just a thing.
Yeah, you
And
talked about it being basic, and I wish it were basic, but that's a prime example of what we talked about. She externalized her outcome. Someone spilled something on the rug.
right,
Not me, I don't have control over it. Although a phone call gets the rug clean and
right,
everybody's happy. And
right,
it's like taking control over your outcomes changes your whole perspective. And you can live in fight and flight or give up all that time and energy worrying about the stain on the rug or get it cleaned. Right?
right,
Yeah.
right. Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. And it's it's complicated, as in complex in some ways, but the way that a person gets into the space that they are in with has the narrative that's negative in the first place, they do that whole process unwittingly, unknowingly. It's so automatic. They're doing it anyways, but they're doing it for the other side, so to speak.
But
So
without
this
your intervention, she could have walked into that room for the next 5 years and looked at
yes.
that stain and
Yes.
been vexed by it. And it's like who's got time for that?
Well, and her thought process, just to follow that long, was she was just going to throw a throw rug over it because her mind was so stuck, right? And those are those pieces of the brain I just talked about. Those pieces of her brain were so stuck in the emotional trauma, so to speak, of what it meant to her, of what happened, that she couldn't generate a behavioral strategy like clean the rug or get ServPro to come in and take it out, or even try to, buff it out yourself. She couldn't think that. And she's not
Yeah.
smart. She's not, it was that she couldn't get out of her own limbic system way, her emotional center way of she had attached she attached a lot of meaning to the issue instead of being like, let's think about this logically and really work on, you know what? This is important to me. I have gratitude for the fact that I have this rug and I'm going to make sure it gets clean and fixed, which is like, okay, let's have that grateful attitude so that we can have some acceptance of the situation and then become freed of our anxiety so we can think straight.
Yeah.
Right? Because that's what happens. People don't think straight. That's why I think thought dumping. Oh, here comes a cat. Cat ear. Did you see the cat here? Whoop. Cat's almost going to take my computer out. But the the thought of thought dumping. I have lots of my clients do what I call thought dumping. When you can dump out on a journal, and I'm not, a lot of people are like, oh, journaling, it's another eye roll, right? No,
Right.
just take a piece of paper and write down like a word or two or whatever. That, and just be like, okay, I'm grateful that I have the rug. I'm grateful that I have blah, 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 whatever it is. Or I'm happy that. You don't even have to use the word grateful. When someone can take and journal, we know not only I can say anecdotally with clients, I can say it works, but also the research is abundant in talking about how when we journal or we thought dump and let go of things out of our head that sit and ruminate and loop in a bad way, it reduces our anxiety when we can journal or we can dump it out. And so when we have thought dumping practice and we talk to people about it, or we, find a life coach or someone like me, it reduces the anxiety. It frees up your mind to be able to think more clearly, like the 3 R's: rational, reasonable, and realistic. And then also it goes towards okay, so we're talking about the mental, emotional, but then it goes to actually reducing physiological body pain. So that when we're doing that, you're multi-layer actually taking down some inflammation in your body that the cortisol dump has created in your body. If you're immune compromised, it can take some of that immune compromised areas of your body down. Some people will hold their bloat, so to speak. They'll feel bloaty.
Yep.
It's all related to the fact that they're sort of psychologically, in a Freudian way, they're backed up because they're suppressing down all of this information, and they're not feeling feelings of joy and feelings of the reward center dopamine rush. They're feeling, and so when you have like, okay, I can activate on this, I can take charge, I can do something, I have control, I can take external control, I can take accountability, I can take responsibility, I can do something to make a difference here. That reduces pain in the body because of the dopamine dumps out of your brain centers, and it goes right in order of like that. There was a study, I'm trying to remember. There was a study called Counting Blessings versus Burdens, right? And if I can find it and give you the post link, I will. I just remember it. But the study is known as Counting Blessings versus Burdens. And what they found was a positive effect on physical well-being among their participants with neuromuscular diseases. And it came from the fact that when you're activated in gratefulness and counting your blessings and in sort of listing them intentionally for the day of how you want to be, we know and we found that piece, the gratitude, has the ability to impact the present, and the likelihood increases that people will function optimally and feel good in the future, which leads to that whole better you, your view, and transformation that is right now. And so it's pretty amazing how it reduces anxiety, it lifts mood, it reduces stress, it gives physicality a better chance, it improves immunity. Just talking about like autoimmune disorders, people have Hashimoto's, or they have lupus, this does not mean it's a cure, but it relieves the strain on on those things. So if you have, like, for instance, a cold, right? Just pulling together this morning a couple optimistic things in my head this morning, I know it reduced my congestion, my sore throat went down, you know, the feeling of being, like, digestively off this morning because of it, like, because I put in motion the intention of living in that moment of today, not how the day was gonna be a disaster.
Well, the physical ramifications, the physical regulation of living in fight or flight constantly on a chronic basis just inflames all these problems from a
Right.
physical standpoint. So reducing the cortisol, reducing the fight or flight just allows your body to regulate better.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And when it does that, it goes to the most important thing that helps people across the board of life is it improves your sleep.
Yeah.
We again know, and I can say this in my practice of 30 years, I harp on sleep all the time. And people do their eye roll on sleep, like, oh, because no one pays attention to sleep as being like the thing. If you have
Right.
enough sleep, things fall into place so much easier, right? And we know that when when it comes to just being good to oneself, showing yourself gratitude and then doing it for others, simple acts of kindness to yourself and others, expressing it. There's a part of your brain that I've talked about on my shows before that it's the hypothalamus, right? The hypothalamus regulates your sleep, eating, thirst, sex drive, temperature, etc. But because the hypothalamus regulates sleep, the more it's full, like the more your heart is full, the more you feel blessed, whatever that looks like for you on any level, right? Then we know that the sleep process is going to be triggered in that area so that you can get a deeper and healthier sleep because you're going to feel there's actually a disorder called sleep anxiety disorder. It
Mhm.
takes the sleep anxiety out or it reduces it down enough that you will sleep better because you'll feel like your brain is in a mental peace bubble. And then your morning will be much more energetic because you're not having that. That's why when people have pain when they go to bed or when they have a cold or they have the flu or they have like something that's just happened, like, something to their body, an accident or arm break or something, it's really hard to have that energy. But when you can be like, okay, put things in perspective, give me this, you're going to end up being like, okay, my next day is going to be really good, which goes back to thought dumping. I give this as a technique and I am happy to share it with my listeners is the last thing going to bed is do 3 or 4 thought dump gratitude things like, I was grateful for this today, and I was grateful for that today, and tomorrow I'm going to live in intention of doing blah, blah, blah. If you set yourself up before you go to sleep like that with gratitude and with what I'm full in my heart for today, even if it's one thing, even if you have nothing specific like, oh, really over the top, because it doesn't have to be big. It's just that, you know what, I get to enjoy the sun today, and I haven't been able to do that in a while because it's been raining. Like something basic,
Yep.
even that alone is enough to flip that limbic system area, your emotional center, to go, oh, this is going to be better. And when you have better sleep and you do that, it reduces anxiety and reduces depression because all that neurochemical stuff um, increases the modulation of this part of your brain. If you're watching, I'm pointing to my frontal cortex, like right in front of your brain. It 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 gives you the feelings of um, an increase in serotonin. So that whole site is responsible for managing negative emotions like guilt and shame and resentment and anger, violence, etc. So I mean, this is a pretty big impact of just a very basic word, gratitude, and its bigger, complex
Yep.
meaning to reduce so much down for people and have such a much more successful life. And so I think I mean, I do more than think. I encourage people to really um, embrace the release of happy chemicals, embrace the fact that it can reduce your stress. Don't roll your eyes at it. Embrace that it improves your sleep, enhances your emotional regulation, enhances your ability to be a responder, not a reactor, boosts your physical health, makes you feel less susceptible to colds, flus, maybe missteps. When people are really anxious, lack sleep, and have all this stuff going on, and they don't have like set intentions, their mind goes sort of elsewhere. They lack focus, and then They might trip down the stairs. They might break their toe on the bed corner because they're not paying attention. Like, these are things that happen because a simple thing of like staying present in the moment, which is gratitude, by the way.
Yep.
That's just living in gratitude. You don't have to walk around being like, I'm grateful for this, I'm grateful for that. It's just living in this mindset, right? It's about living in the increased positive emotions of joy, optimism, peace, peacefulness. And you and I have talked about that so many times over the years of, I just want to have peace.
Yep.
Find my peace. I just want to have moments of peace, right? And when that happens, we lower the risk for depression, and we increase the resiliency, and our relationships tend to improve.
Funny how people cock their heads like a dog when you say that, and they say, "What the hell are you talking about? Peace? You want peace? I just want peace. I just
Right.
want those moments."
Right. And when people do cock their heads with that, I often will say, okay, don't do peace. Think of, I want calm. I
Mm.
want body calm, mind calm in my space. And that's when here's my wicked reference. I like a bubble. A lovely bubble,
Yeah.
Glinda bubble around, as cheesy as it sounds. Put that bubble around, fill it with your space of like, I need to have calm. And no one else can make me have calm. I can make me have calm. If someone else isn't calm, that's not my problem.
I think
It
you
can
just
become my
described
problem.
I think you just described a real critical time period and a real easy place to start this practice, which is that time period right before you go to bed when the light goes out before you fall asleep.
Right.
And first of all, become self-aware of what it is that's going on in your head when you do that, because many of us just run through all kinds of stressors,
Right.
which disturbs our sleep and it raises our cortisol and just disturbs everything. You can turn that around at that point because you got to be in the moment. There's nothing you can do about the things that are stressing you right now. Just take a list of the things you're grateful for, the good things that happen to you, your kids, your pets, whatever it is.
Right.
Just list it and change that mindset in those couple minutes right at bed before you fall asleep, and try to increase your sleep and increase the quality of your sleep, and things start to get better. It's a really simple practice, and that's a super critical time to do it.
And the importance of doing that, and I explain this to all my clients just about, is what you were saying is, when you do this before you go to sleep, as much as any other time of day, before you go to sleep, it's allowing your brain not have to be rehearsing through your sleep time, because your brain, if you don't put it out on paper, your brain knows that it has to hold it and it has to retain it. It believes that. So if you have worries, if you have thoughts, if you aren't just living in like a calm space, by saying, you know what, I'm going to put it all out on paper. And if I do that, then I know that when I wake up, because my brain will know that I put it there, my brain won't have to be practicing in the sleep, because that's why we have dreaming. I mean, not the only reason, but the dreams come up because there's symbolisms and metaphors for the things that are going on in our life, because we're not thought dumping them out and releasing them. Because if we don't, we're rehearsing them, we're ruminating about them in our sleep, which creates the anxiety. So it's to your point, right?
Yeah,
So
rumination is such an enemy.
it is. And people do it because why? We're trained to do that, right? Because it's a way of mentally noting how to keep track of our crap. And it doesn't have to be that way. That's why there's all these like amazing journals that are out there now, and but people don't have time to do it. You do, because if you're laying in bed for 2 hours looking at the ceiling, you have time,
Yep. Oh
because
god.
you should just lay there and do that, right?
Yep.
So how do you so in my last, like 5, 7, 10 minutes of this, I want to make sure that people leave today going into Thanksgiving week, right? How to cultivate and how to practice cultivating some gratitude. One, what we just talked about, keep a gratitude piece of paper, keep a gratitude journal, regularly write down a word, a phrase of something that was good, something you're thankful for, something you're looking forward to, right? Living with that intention. There's one. Um, I call it practicing one good thing or practicing three good things. Some practitioners call it that, but I call it practice one good thing a day. So
Right.
identify one positive or one productive thing that happens each day, and why it occurred, and what did you do in that? What was your participation in that, right? So
And by
that
the way, take a moment to enjoy it.
Right. Practicing that one good thing and not letting it go. And notoriously, I'll have clients be like, they won't come up with anything, and I'll give them like two or three things, and they'll be like, "Oh, but those don't really count." They don't count in that person's mind because they're small,
Right.
but they're not small. They're not small. So it doesn't have to be like, I built the house, I cleaned the Taj Mahal, right?
Right. Yeah.
Right, I flew to it's literally like I was able to um, hold the door open for someone today and they said thank you. I mean, that basic, right? That right. Going
It's
back to
funny
what
you
I said,
say that because I had an incident at Dunkin's yesterday morning, walking around with the back and just basically limping everywhere I had to go. And I just held the door open for somebody, and then one woman went in, and there was an older guy, and he looked at me, and goes, "You've done enough work," and he held the door open for me, and it was like, just simple things, but
but
you know,
it's
just a
but
good exchange and just lightened everything.
but you noted it, and that's practicing your one good thing, right?
Yeah,
Because you practice it, and then someone else picked up on the practice because it's very contagious socially, right?
yeah,
Um, I said this earlier, writing a thank you note. Now, people are notorious. Again, I love that word today, notorious. People are notorious for writing texts,
yeah,
sometimes, not always, and sometimes an email. I am a big writer of old school, write a thank you note. There's nothing better than getting a card or getting a note from someone that took the time to write something to you, expressing something to you that's good, something how you impacted them, something, writing how you have made a difference in somebody's life,
yeah,
or, something helpful, right? Something basic. And it surprises people. I had someone help me with something about a month and a half ago. It took an hour and a half of their time. And I picked a card specific for them. I wrote them and I gave them a little gift card because they went out of their way to do something really nice for me. And they were floored.
yeah,
And you know how people have a hard time accepting like praise? They were like, "Oh, you didn't have to do that. Oh my God, that was right."
yeah,
But I know that I felt so appreciative of their help because they didn't have to do that, and they took time out of their day to do something that they didn't have to, and they did it without any question, and I just love that, and I love them for it, and it made me feel good to be able to do it because I wanted to make
right,
sure they knew. But people are so like, "Oh my God, you don't have to thank me," right? And we all fall into that, but just being mindful of, the thank you note, right? The next thing about, gratitude and how to create it, use mental subtraction. Now, what I mean by that is imagine what your life would be like if a positive event hadn't happened to
mm,
appreciate it more fully.
yeah,
So imagine if I didn't have that person help me, I imagine that I would have struggled with half of that project that I was doing a little bit extra, a little bit longer, and it would have been more difficult, right?
yeah,
So if I imagine by using mental subtraction that my life would have been more difficult that day and it wouldn't have ended in the same way with that project being complete and have the outcome that it had I not had it. And then it's like, oh, I can appreciate that so much because that made my life full that day. That was so invigorating because it accomplished something, somebody helped me, and I felt good and positive towards them and the situation. So using mental subtraction is a great technique. um, of course, focusing on presence and present moment,
mm.
um, people don't like the moment, they like the past and they like the future. So staying closely connected to the sense of the moment and not missing anything. You miss all the opportunities that are there for gratitude because you're not paying attention to them.
But I
So
challenge people to look back on 2 or 3 moments of their lives that they cherish, and what they're
right.
gonna find out when you examine that is that you were in the moment. You weren't looking at your
Yes.
phone, you weren't worried about what was going on at work, you weren't worried about anything outside of what you were doing at that particular moment at that time.
Correct.
Those are the best times. When you actually get in the moment, those are the best times.
Exactly. Exactly. And if people could do that more, that would be great. Fantastic.
And by the way, you
And
can. That's what people don't realize. They think it happens to them. Again, external. It's not external. It's you create those moments.
and I think the word create those moments is super important here, is that you create, not wait. You're creating them, you're not waiting for them to happen to you,
Right.
right? And then the last
I'm gonna sit in a theater and watch Wicked for 2.5 hours.
I I love that.
And
And
have a moment, yeah.
you will be well, I
No, but you created that moment by determining that that's what you're going to do. We
yes.
we do it with the Patriots on Sunday. I'm gonna I'm
Yes.
gonna create a moment, sit down for 3 hours and watch the Patriots.
And I'm going to go create another moment and watch Wicked again on Thursday.
There you go.
So before it comes out again, because I got tickets for that too.
Yep.
I've been very blessed, and I'm very grateful for two really cool opportunities to be able to see it before it actually opens. So it's awesome.
Yep.
However, well, I won't go into it. I was going to say, however, the place that I go is not giving the merch that other places are going, and I'm very upset about that.
Oh no.
I'm not getting my cool merch.
Wow.
But and so the last thing that I was going to say on the cultivation of this as we go into the Thanksgiving week is I ask people to consider people in your life that inspire you, right? Reflect on what was most significant or who's been most significant about their influence on you. Um, because we try to emulate people without thinking about it. And I think you should actively think about people who have inspired you um, and go with that and influence your life on a daily about that. And it might be someone different every day. I mean, my grandmother, God rest
Yep.
her soul, today's her 100 and she's no longer with us. Today's her 100 and hold on. Hold please. It is her 106th birthday today.
Wow.
So it would have been her
Yeah.
106th birthday. But I
This can also be a composite, right? Because you can look at
yes,
people in your life and go, I love the way that person does this, or I love the way this person approaches that.
yes, and it can be someone present in your life, it can be someone who's passed, it can be a combination of all, it can be people that you don't know personally, but you look up to in the world. It's just about like, because those are people that set your motivation in tow, right? To
Yep.
be like having your best day, having your best life, or how would so and so handle it? I know that I'm pretty much predominantly a very upbeat, happy, motivated person, right? And it's very rare that you see me not with a smile for the most part, right?
Right.
Um, I,
May not
I,
be your process, but you process.
right. You say
Yeah.
right, that right, but in general, you know, um, I have people that will say to me like, "Do you always smile? Are you always smiling? Do you ever get upset?" And of course I do, right? Obviously.
Yep.
But they don't see it and then they're always like, "I just want to be," they'll say, "I just want to be like you in your head." They don't say like me necessarily, but they'll say, you know, "Oh, I was at something and I had this and I thought, what would Dr. Kim say?" And so
Yeah.
that kind of thing. Who do you have in your life that you go, "What would so and so say?" or "What inspires me about that person to make a change?" Right? So finding that person for you so that it integrates. I do want to acknowledge that there were a whole bunch of comments and I saw a whole bunch
Yes.
of people join in that they were popping up. So good morning and thank you for attending, Kate. Thank you for saying that I look pretty this morning. It was good because what I looked like a few hours ago wasn't this pretty. So thank you.
Another compliment
Um,
too from
and I
Kathleen.
don't know what I said it that made it a great analogy, but she took it back and said it wasn't an analogy, but I have no idea what she was talking about, but I'm sure it was either a metaphor or something. So, and then Kathleen, thank you for joining, and I miss you too. Hope to see you sometime, maybe over the holidays. And I know that I saw a whole bunch of people pop up just in my regular feed on my phone feed that were popping in and listening. So I shout out to people at UMass Medical Marlborough, the nurses at oncology. I
Don't
know they're
comment
listening.
privately. Comment here.
I know. Well, they well, so I know, but I think that they're working.
Yeah.
So, and I have a couple of it sounds like to me by watch it sounds in my text. It sounds like people are listening at a couple different recovery and treatment centers.
Nice.
So they must be talking about this. So certainly take it and use it in your groups. And then there's a few other handful of people that I can see that have popped in and out. So I appreciate that. I know a whole bunch of people go back and listen, but we will be on next week. I will be remote again, but remote from a different place. And
Mhm.
we will be having our Wednesday morning pregame Thanksgiving set
That's
up
right.
so that you don't harm your family members the next day.
So you can survive Thanksgiving.
So you can survive with gratitude and grace on Thursday and not eat like you're going, to the chair.
No, I know.
Don't eat out of emotion. There we go.
No,
So
don't. Yeah, try not to avoid all the negatives on Thanksgiving.
And I am very happy to report that I think all people should go see Wicked. That will make you happy. You, Lou, should go see For Good.
I'll
I
go
do.
with
I will have
my
no
daughter will
spoil.
want to go, and I'll go.
I have no spoiler alerts because I've been asked by so many people, please don't spoil it for me, even though it's all over TikTok and people are bootlegging it left and right and posting it up. But I
But
will
we
say,
know the story, don't we? We've already heard the story.
well, a lot of people don't know the second part because either they've never read the book, which by the way, I highly recommend because the book is spectacular and it's very dark and very crazy and
Mm.
totally different than everything. But if you haven't been to the Broadway play and you don't know what the second part is, you're gonna be, yeah, because everyone knows the song. There's a song For Good, and then there's a song called No Good Deed. But it's very timely in terms of what's going on in the world around us. And it's been timely for years because it's been around for 22 years anyway. And the book has been around longer. So the movie does a beautiful job. And I don't get any kickbacks for this, but the cast and the talent and the everything in this, I mean, it's epic. I mean, I think when Wizard of Oz came out, it was probably like this, or like when the Beatles came out. This is like the
Oh, wow.
fervor around this. That's how crazy
High
amazing it
praise.
is.
Yeah.
But it's a feel good and it will definitely be exciting. And there is one part, and this is the non-spoiler, but sort of spoiler. There is one part that, although the person I was with was crying, and then even 20 minutes after the movie was dripping crying at Chili's. Because
Oh,
she was still thinking about it and she couldn't speak because that's what happens to a lot of people. And I was laughing because I was like, this is entertaining me. But there was one part in For Good that I won't give away, but the song, the song comes and people think that it's the end of the movie. It's not the end of the movie. And there's a thing that happens and the song happens and then everyone's emotional, but then there's this thing. And I didn't cry, but my heart and my chest ached for like 2 hours afterwards because it was so emotional. I was like, "Oh god." And I just am thinking about it, getting chills now. So,
yep.
talk about gratitude and just feeling full of like, because everyone when this happens, if you watch that or you listen to just that song alone, everyone can relate. Everyone can relate to having a person in their life that has come into their life and has made them feel something good. And so I'm a proponent of, hey, if you're down in the dumps, go see Wicked.
All right. Excellent.
So,
Be a
here's
good
my promo.
basis
I
for your
should get
gratitude.
kickback. I should get kickback for
You should.
promoting this
Good
crap.
basis for your gratitude list. Find that person
Yeah,
in your life that fits that scene.
and there will be. And so if you don't know it, go to Spotify or go to whatever that soundtrack is on and go listen to it. It's a tearjerker. It's a tearjerker. But when you put it with the movie, there's a scene. There's a scene. So anyway, I won't say happy Thanksgiving to everyone yet because it's not Thanksgiving and I'm going to see you all next week. But I want you to all go out there, live in your best moment, live for you being your best you. And remember all the good things that come from just having a little bit of gratitude in your life. So, you guys have a great week, and I will see you on the backside.